Welcome to Starbound. My name is Veronica and I'll be your narrator today. But before we get started into today's story, please check below to see if you're subscribed to our channel. It's 100% free and just allows our stories to pop up on your feed more often. Zeke Marster stepped off the transport shuttle at Apex University and immediately knew he'd made a mistake transferring to this school. Every single alien in the docking bay had backed away from him, like he was radioactive. Which, to be fair, humans technically were, just a little bit. He tightened his grip on his duffel bag, military surplus, naturally covered in patches from his grandmother's service days. She was a very brave and effective combat medic, performing field surgeries and saving lives. Zeke idolized his grandmother and what she stood for: being brave, badass, and doing what's right. Inside his duffel, his emergency kit rattled. Duct tape, a solar charger he'd built from scrap, protein bars that could double as construction material, his grandmother's cast iron skillet, and a carefully wrapped photo of his family standing in front of their auto shop, all grease-stained smiles and middle fingers discreetly flashing the camera. The doors hissed open to reveal Apex University's welcoming committee. They'd clearly drawn straws for who had to greet the Deathworlder, and Dean Tadria had lost. The Dean was Yurthani, humanoid enough if you ignore the bioluminescent patches along her temples that pulsed with her emotional state. Currently, they were flashing a nervous yellow that made her look like a very academic traffic light. "Welcome to Apex University," she said, her voice carrying the kind of forced cheer usually reserved for dental procedures. "You must be Zeke Marsters, our first culture exchange student from Earth." She pronounced it like it might explode. "The Class 15 Deathworld that's simultaneously a nursery planet. You're here to teach us why the universal map describes Earth as such." "That's me. I'm excited and honored to represent Earth in our cultural exchange class," Zeke said, offering his hand. The dean stared at it like he was brandishing a weapon. "Oh, right. Handshakes. Human thing. We grab each other's appendages as a greeting. Used to be to show we weren't holding weapons, but now it's just muscle memory. Personally, I prefer a slight bow. Less germs being spread around, you know? But my mom drilled it into me to shake." The dean looked alarmed. "You greet each other by checking for weapons?" "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds paranoid." Zeke lowered his hand. "How do Yurthani say hello?" "We harmonize our biorhythms through proximity meditation." "Cool. How long does that take?" 6 to 8 minutes. Zeke chuckled. "Yeah, I think humans are gonna stick with handshakes and bowing." The dean smiled, seeming to relax. "Yes, I admit it takes some time. It can feel bothersome even to us. But cultural manners are hard habits to break, Zeke nodded. "You can say that again." As they walked through the station, Zeke couldn't help but notice the other students eyeing him with equal parts curiosity and caution. "Don't mind them," Dean Tadria said, her patches cycling through embarrassed purples. "It's just that your file was quite extensive. The advisory board spent 3 days just trying to understand something called Florida Man." "Oh, you don't understand Florida Man. You just accept Florida Man, like hurricanes or conceptual art." They passed through the Central Plaza, a magnificent sphere of crystallized atmosphere where students from hundreds of worlds mingled, or had been mingling until Zeke arrived. Now they pressed against the far walls, whispering in languages his translator scrambled to parse. Heard they breathe oxygen for meditative purposes. Their planet has magnetic poles that flip. Something about splitting atoms for fuel. Absolute madness. A small figure suddenly blocked their path. Barely coming up to Zeke's chest, the creature looked like what would happen if a koala evolved to be an accountant. Gray fur meticulously groomed, large eyes behind sensible spectacles, and an expression of determined curiosity. "You're the human," she stated. Her voice carried a slight whistle on the syllabants. "I'm Kella 9, xenobiology major. I've read every paper on your species. None of them make sense." "That's basically our brand," Zeke said. "Humans, confusing predators since 300,000 BCE. "You're not what I expected." Kella's nose twitched, apparently a sign of deep thought. "The report suggests something more feral." "Give me a few days without coffee, you'll see feral." "Coffee?" Her eyes widened. "The stimulant beverage that's classified as a controlled substance on 40 worlds?" "We drink it every morning, sometimes at night too, if we hate ourselves enough." Kella pulled out a datapad and started furiously taking notes. "Fascinating. Voluntary consumption of toxins for cognitive enhancement. I must know more." Zeke smiled mischievously. "And coffee is just our legal substance for cognitive enhancement." Kella looked horrified. "There are illegal ones? By the void, what kind of effect must they have on humans to be outlawed?" Zeke chuckled. He couldn't help it. It was fun to see the awe, excitement, and curiosity in others. Not that he didn't understand. He'd been fascinated by alien biology plenty of times in his life. But human pride made it fun to be the center of attention sometimes. Dean Tadrius' patches flashed desperate green. "Perhaps we should continue to your dormitory." "One moment," interrupted a new voice. Smooth, cultured, with the kind of clear dialect that suggests its owner had never met a rule they didn't want to follow. The speaker descended from the upper walkway with grace. Gorvog Zeke recognized. Humanoids built with skin that shifted through metallic hues based on emotional state. This one was currently a calm silver that probably took years of meditation to maintain. Nim Osko. He introduced himself with a slight bow, which Zeke appreciated. "Student council president, ethics major, and your designated cultural liaison. I volunteered for the position." Zeke bowed back to show equal respect. "You volunteered to babysit the Deathworlder?" Zeke asked, grinning. "Brave or stupid?" "Curious," Nim corrected, his skin flickering with brief copper. "Amusement, maybe?" "I've studied every spacefaring civilization in the galaxy. Yours is the only one that achieved interstellar travel while actively poisoning your own atmosphere. I must understand the logic." Zeke laughed. "Bold of you to assume there was logic involved." More students began creeping closer, curiosity overcoming fear. An amphibious student that had the lovely bright coloring of a poisonous frog, something that might have been very ambitious plant that decided to get a degree. Another primate-adjacent student that was more flexible and slender than an Earth human, with extra joints. "Right," Zeke said, adjusting his bag. "Quick poll. How many of you have actually read Earth's planetary classification?" A few appendages, tentacles, and what might have been an elbow raised hesitantly. "Now, how many of you understand why we're classified as both a Class 15 Deathworld and a Nursery planet?" Every raised appendage dropped. Zeke grinned. "Dean Tadria, forget the dorm tour. I'd like to start class now, if that's okay." The dean smiled proudly. "Of course, right this way." Later, everyone was seated or standing in the lecture hall. News had spread quickly of Zeke's arrival, and now students and teachers alike were crowding the room. He surveyed the crowd from the podium. Everything from methane breathers in environment suits to silicone-based life forms that looked like walking gemstones. The last time he'd faced this many expectant faces, he'd been explaining to the Chicago PD why his robotics project had accidentally hacked their traffic system. "All right," he said, pulling up a hologram of Earth. "Let's start with the basics. This is my home. Pretty, right? Blue, green, white clouds. Looks peaceful from up here. Now, let me show you what's actually happening down there." The hologram zoomed in, splitting into multiple screens showing hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, tsunamis, tornadoes, wildfires, and floods, all happening simultaneously. At any given moment, Zeke explained, Earth is trying to kill us in approximately 17 different ways. This isn't hyperbole. I did the math. Well, my friend Kenji did the math, but I watched. A Prevenian student, essentially a humanoid stick insect with anxiety, raised a trembling hand. How do you function with such constant threats? Denial, mostly. Also, we named them. You name your natural disasters? Hurricane Katrina, Typhoon Haiyan, the big one. That's an earthquake we're still waiting for in California. We find things less scary when they have names. Same reason we named the fault line that's definitely going to destroy Los Angeles someday. We call it San Andreas, like it's our drunk uncle who ruins Thanksgiving. The audience sat in stunned silence. Kella was taking notes so fast her stylus was smoking. But here's the thing, Zeke continued, shifting the display. Earth isn't just trying to kill us with weather. Let me introduce you to our biosphere. New images filled the screens. A saltwater crocodile that looked like a living dinosaur. A blue-ringed octopus, beautiful and deadly. A cassowary, which Zeke describes as what happens when a velociraptor decides to become a bird, but forgets to stop being terrifying. Box jellyfish, bullet ants, the entire continent of Australia. We have a creature called a honey badger, Zeke said conversationally. It's about this big. He held his hands maybe 2 feet apart. It regularly picks fights with lions and wins because it's too angry to die. That's not even our apex predator. That's just Tuesday. Nim's silver skin rippled with confused bronze, but your file indicates humans are the apex predator. Oh, we are, but not because we're the strongest or fastest. Watch this. The hologram shifted to show early humans, barely distinguishable from other primates. Then, time-lapse evolution, tools, fire, agricultures, cities, spaceflight. Every other species on Earth evolved to fit a niche. Humans evolved to break the game. Too slow to catch prey? Invent projectiles. Too weak to fight predators? Domesticate wolves to fight for us. Can't digest half the stuff in our environment? Invent cooking. Can't survive winter? Steal the fur from things that can. That's... A gelatinous being quivered. That's cheating! That's survival, Z corrected. And that's why Earth is a nursery world. It doesn't just create life. It creates life that refuses to lose. Every extinction event, every catastrophe, every cosmic middle finger the universe threw at our planet, life found a way around it. We had 5 major extinction events. 5! You know what life did each time? Said bet and came back weirder. He pulled up images of the Cambrian explosion, dinosaurs, the rise of mammals. The dinosaurs ruled for 165 million years. Then an asteroid hit. Winter lasted for decades, and 75% of our species died. You know what survived? Tiny furry things that lived underground and ate bugs. Our ancestors looked at an apocalypse and thought, this is fine, we'll just become the dominant species now. But that contradicts the Deathworld classification, protested a student who looked like a crystalline spider trying to get an MBA. Deathworlds don't nurture complex life. That's because you're thinking about it wrong, Zeke said. Earth isn't harsh despite being a nursery. It's nursery because it's harsh. Every challenge forces adaptation. Every disaster breeds innovation. Every predator creates clever prey. It's not just evolution. It's evolution with a deadline. He brought up a new image, a human toddler playing in mud while a confused dog watched. This is my nephew. He's 3. Last month, he ate a bug, fell downstairs, got back up, and then tried to ride the dog. His biggest concern was that the bug didn't taste like chicken nuggets. We're born on a death world, and our response is to immediately try to put everything in our mouths. That's not stupidity. That's the audacity of a species that knows it's going to win. How? Kella asked, her stylus poised. How does a species maintain that kind of optimism in such an environment? Zeke's expression turned thoughtful. Because we're not optimists. We're something much more dangerous. We're adaptable pessimists who got really good at improvising. We assume everything will go wrong, plan for it, and when it inevitably does, we laugh and make it work anyway. The next day, Zeke's official Intro to Earth Survival and Sarcasm class was packed. Word had spread about the human who explained his death world with a casual air of someone describing a particularly exciting sports match. Today, Zeke announced, we're talking about human disaster response. But first, a question. What do you do when your planet tries to kill you? A tentacle student raised several appendages. Evacuate? Cute. No. We throw parties. The class exchanged glances that transcended species barriers, united in confusion. I'm serious. Zeke continued. Hurricane coming? Hurricane party. Stuck in a blizzard? Blizzard party. Earthquake just leveled half your city? You better believe someone's grilling in the rubble. We have a saying. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Lemons are a fruit that's basically edible acid. By the way, we make drinks out of them, because of course we do. He pulled up footage from various disasters, people surfing tsunami debris, having snowball fights during blizzards, setting up barbecues in flood zones. But it goes deeper than just stubbornness, he explained. We've turned disaster response into an art form. Watch this. The screen showed hurricane preparations, boarding windows, stocking supplies, evacuation routes marked with spray paint. We track storms like some civilizations track holy events. We have whole agencies dedicated to predicting disasters, not preventing them. We can't do that. But predicting them so we can adapt. We have earthquake-resistant buildings that sway instead of breaking. Cities below sea level protected by walls and pumps. We live in Tornado Alley and earthquake zones and hurricane corridors on purpose. Why? Nim asked, his skin shifting through confused coppers. Why not simply relocate to safer areas? Because humans are contrarians who think unsafe means cheap real estate. Also, those disaster zones, usually gorgeous. California has earthquakes, wildfires, and droughts, but also perfect weather and beaches. So we stay and engineer around the problems. He shifted focus. Now, let's talk about human conflicts. We don't just survive natural disasters, we create our own. We've had countless wars in recorded history. Don't even get me started on the ones we haven't recorded. The class recoiled collectively. That's insane, breathed a cloud-like being whose name Zeke couldn't pronounce. How did your species survive? By getting really, really good at it. But here's the weird part. We also got good at rebuilding. Every war led to innovation. Medicine advanced faster during conflicts. The internet, military project. GPS, military. Duct tape? Okay, that was for sealing ammunition boxes, but now we use it for everything. You weaponized adhesive? Keela squeaked. We weaponized everything. Then we found civilian uses for it. That's human innovation. How can we use this to destroy our enemies? Cool. Now how can we use it to fix my sink? Zeke grinned mischievously again. There was a trend a while back about using ramen, glue, and a little paint to do basic house repairs. Someone in the audience gagged, overwhelmed with disgust. Doesn't ramen have too high a sodium content to be edible anyway? Someone else asked. Zeke shrugged. Nah, that's a myth. College students survive on that stuff. Another student looked absolutely grossed out. They eat their building repair stuff? Does that mean their houses are made of edible materials? Zeke laughed. No. The ramen thing was just humans being kinda weird. Let me show you how we actually rebuild things. He brought up images of human cities, rebuilt after devastation. London burned down in 1666. We rebuilt it better. San Francisco got basically leveled up by an earthquake in 1906. We rebuilt it on the same fault line because we're spiteful. Japan gets hit by earthquakes regularly. They just make buildings that can take it. We are professionally stubborn as a species. But the environmental damage? A student who looked like a concerned fern interjected. Your own reports show massive pollution, climate change, ecosystem collapse. Yes, Zeke agreed cheerfully. We spend about 2 centuries poisoning our own air and water, the same air and water we need to live. And you're proud of this? Proud? Nah, but we're fixing it. See, humans have this amazing ability. We can create massive problems and then panic innovate our way out. We're switching to renewable energy, developing carbon capture, creating lab-grown meat. We're literally trying to science our way out of our own mess. Will it work? Probably. Hopefully. Will it be pretty? Absolutely not. But that's never stopped us before. Nim raised a hand. This seems like paradox. You're simultaneously the cause of and solution to your own problems. Welcome to humanity. We're walking paradoxes held together by stimulants and an obsession with creative innovation. All right, Zeke said at the start of the next class. We've covered how Earth tries to kill us and how we try to kill each other. Now, let's talk about how we used to explain it all. Mythology. He pulled up a comparative chart of human religions throughout history. Humans have created thousands of religions. Only a select few really took off, but there are many smaller religions too. We've got gods for everything. Sun gods, moon gods, war gods, love gods, gods of wine, gods of doors, yes, doors, gods of very specific rivers, and my personal favorite, Sterquilinus, the Roman god of manure. You had a deity for excrement? Asked a horrified student. Fertilizer was important to agriculture, but yeah, we had a poop god, still more dignified than some of our modern celebrities. The class didn't know how to respond to that. But here's where it gets interesting, Zeke continued. We don't just worship these gods. We fought wars over them. The Crusades lasted nearly 200 years. Various holy wars, inquisitions, purges. We've spilt more blood over whose imaginary friend was better than any other cause except maybe territory and resources. He brought up images of ancient temples, medieval cathedrals, modern megachurches. And the wildest part? Most of our gods are absolutely unhinged. Zeus, king of the Greek gods, couldn't keep it in his toga and turned into various animals to seduce mortals. Loki, Norse trickster god, gave birth to an 8-legged horse. Egyptian gods had animal heads in very specific roles. Thoth was wisdom and moon and magic and judgment of the dead, because why have 4 gods when one overworked deity will do? Kella was frantically scribbling notes. But surely modern humans don't believe these myths. Define believe. We don't think Thor is literally throwing lightning bolts, but we named a day of the week after him. We say, "Oh my God," when we're surprised. We knock on wood for luck. That's from Celtic tree worship. We throw coins in fountains and make wishes. That's just paying off water spirits with pocket change. So you simultaneously reject and practice these beliefs? Pretty much. Humans are really good at cognitive dissonance. We know our superstitions are irrational, but we do them anyway because what if we're wrong? It's Pascal's wager, but for everything. Black cats, broken mirrors, the number 13. We hedge our bets against universe angering constantly. A student near the back, some kind of sentient crystal formation, chimed in. But you mentioned religious wars. Those suggest genuine belief. Oh, people definitely believed. Died for it. Killed for it. The Spanish Inquisition tortured people into converting. The Crusades mobilized entire nations. But here's the thing about human religious violence. It was almost never actually about the gods. He pulled up historic data. Power, territory, resources, politics. Religion was just the excuse. God wanted us to have your land. Sounds better than, we want your land. We've always been good at justifying what we wanted to do anyway. The gods were convenient scapegoats. That's deeply cynical, Nim observed, his skin shifting to contemplative bronze. That's history. But it's not all bad. Religion also drove art, architecture, music, philosophy. Humans need meaning like we need oxygen. So we made it up. Thousands of years of making up stories to explain existence, and some of them were beautiful. Some were horrifying. Most were both. He showed images of religious art through the ages. Cave paintings to cathedral windows to modern installations. And here's the kicker. We knew they were stories. Deep down, every culture that met another culture with different gods had to wonder. But we kept believing anyway, because the alternative was admitting the universe was random and uncaring and we were making it all up as we went along. Which was true, Kella said slowly. Which was absolutely true. But try explaining that to a medieval peasant. Hell, try explaining it to modern humans. We still have people who believe the Earth is flat, and we have pictures from space. He paused, letting that sink in. But that's what makes humanity special. We looked at a chaotic, deadly universe and said, this needs a narrative. We couldn't control disasters, so we invented gods who could. We couldn't prevent death, so we created afterlives. We couldn't understand why terrible things happened, so we invented cosmic justice. And when science finally gave us real answers, we kept the stories anyway, because that's what humans do. We tell stories, even when the world is ending, especially when the world is ending. By the end of the week, Zeke's classes had become the most attended events at Apex University. Even faculty members snuck in to hear the Deathworlder explain his impossible planet. For our last regular class before midterms, Zeke announced, I want to put it all together. Why Earth is classified as both a death world and a nursery. He brought up a timeline of Earth's history. 4.5 billion years ago, Earth formed from cosmic debris, molten rock, constant meteor impacts, no atmosphere worth mentioning. Paradise, right? But somehow, life showed up anyway. We're not sure how. Lightning hit the right puddle of chemicals, or maybe it hitchhiked on an asteroid. Point is, life looked at a ball of lava and said, I can work with this. The timeline accelerated. First cell, photosynthesis, the oxygen catastrophe. Life literally poisoned itself with oxygen, a waste product that killed most existing organisms.
but some adapted to USC the poison as fuel. That's Earth's first lesson. Today's catastrophe is tomorrow's opportunity. More acceleration, complex cell, multicellular life, the Cambrian explosion. Then evolution went nuts. The Cambrian period was like... Imagine if natural selection got drunk and had a design contest. We got creatures with 5 eyes, things that looked like walking mouths, armor-plated nightmares. Most went extinct, but the principle was established. Earth rewards experimentation. Dinosaurs rose and fell. Mammals emerged. Ice ages came and went. Each disaster created new niches. Each extinction made room for innovation. Earth wasn't just hosting life, it was training it. Every challenge was a test, adapt or die. And something always adapted. He focused on the last few million years. Then primates showed up and decided to speed run evolution. Bigger brains, tools, language, culture. We basically min-maxed intelligence while dumping all our points out of natural weapons and armor. We're soft, weak, slow, and born helpless. But we're also the only species that looked at fire, and thought, I'm gonna make this my pet. The image shifted to modern Earth. And now, we've conquered a death world by being too stubborn to die and too curious to stop poking things. We split atoms, rewrote genetics, and left footprints on our moon just to prove we could. We're still the same species that named hurricanes and wrestled wolves into becoming dogs. We just have better tools now. He looked at his audience, hundreds of alien faces, all processing this information. Earth is a death world because it kills the weak. It is a nursery because it doesn't just want survival. It wants excellence. Every human alive is descended from thousands of generations who looked at impossible odds and said, bring it on. We're not products of a gentle evolution. We're what happens when natural selection gets competitive. But that doesn't explain the contradictions, Nim said. The mythology alongside science. The cooperation alongside conflict. The creation and destruction. Sure it does, Zeke said. Humans are contradictory because Earth is contradictory, beautiful and deadly, nurturing and hostile, predictable and chaotic. We're exactly what our planet made us, adaptable paradoxes who thrive on conflict and create meaning from chaos. He shut down the hologram. Your midterm project is to design and survive a simulated planetary crisis. You can work in groups, but here's the catch. It has to be something that could actually happen on Earth. Points for creativity, adaptability, and especially for finding ways to make the disaster work for you. Due in 2 weeks. As students filled out, discussing their projects, Kella lingered. You really love it, she said. Your Deathworld. Despite everything you've told us, you miss it. Zeke smiled, touching the photo in his pocket. Of course I do. It's home. It made me who I am. Every scar has a story. Every disaster taught a lesson. Earth isn't just where humans live. It's why we're human. I think I understand now, Kella said. Earth isn't really trying to kill you. It's trying to make you stronger. Nah, Zeke laughed. It's definitely trying to kill us. We're just too stubborn to take the hint. The harmonics arrived on a Tuesday, which Zeke found personally offensive. Tuesdays were for pop quizzes and cafeteria mystery meat, not existential threats to galactic civilization. He was in the middle of teaching his students about hurricanes, complete with small-scale wind demonstration that had accidentally blown Keela's homework out the window, when every screen in the university flickered and died. Huh? Zeke said, watching his holographic hurricane dissolve into static. That's new. Then the sky opened. Ships poured through like water through a broken dam, their hulls singing in frequencies that made Zeke's teeth ache. The harmonics didn't look like invaders. They looked like art given form. Tall, graceful beings with bodies that seemed to be made of condensed sound waves, their forms shifting between solid and ethereal with each movement. The campus PA system crackled to life, but instead of Dean Tadria's usual announcements, a single voice resonated through every speaker, every personal device, every neural implant in the station. Rejoice! You have been chosen for integration. Your discord will be replaced with unity. Your chaos will become harmony. Resistance is not merely futile, it is philosophically incorrect. Around Zeke, his classmates began to sway. Their eyes glazed over, pupils dilating as a harmonic signal worked its way into their minds. Keela dropped her tablet, her gray fur rippling as she began to hum in perfect pitch with the invader's frequency. Nim's 3 brains synchronized for the first time in his life, and he wept with joy. Zeke waited for the mind control to hit him, and waited and waited. He said to the room full of swaying aliens. Anyone else not feeling the vibe? The harmonic signal pushed harder, flooding the room with emotional manipulation that should have reduced any thinking being to a compliant drone. Love, fear, joy, despair, all cranked to 11 and fired directly into the brain. Zeke yawned. He had grown up in Chicago, where the weather could swing 60 degrees in an hour. He'd survived puberty, high school, and teaching his grandmother how to use TikTok. He'd worked in his family's auto shop since he was 8, where customers screamed about bills, his uncles screamed about sports, and the radio screamed whatever passed for music these days. His emotional regulation had been forged in the fires of Earth's chaos. The harmonics attack felt like a gentle Tuesday by comparison. Right, he said, grabbing his emergency kit. Guess I'm doing with this. The maintenance tunnels under Apex U were not designed for humans. Zeke discovered this by smacking his head on every third pipe and leaving a trail of creative profanity that would have made his shop teacher proud. He wasn't alone. Scattered through the tunnels were others who'd somehow resisted the integration. A handful of maintenance bots whose programming was too simple to override. A Gorvac janitor named Bleak, whose natural emotional shifting made him impossible to lock down. And surprisingly, Professor Xander. How are you not integrated? Zeke asked the crystalline being. Xander's form flicked through embarrassed patterns. I have a condition. My species can sometimes develop what you might call emotional dyslexia. I feel everything backwards. Their joy signal hit me as mild annoyance. That's brilliant! Okay, so we've got me with Earth trauma conditioning, you with backwards feeling, Bleak who changes emotions too fast to catch, and... He looked at the maintenance bots. What's your excuse? Unit G4N3 does not have feelings. Unit G4N3 only has protocol. I love you too, Jane. Alright, Team Misfits Emotions. Let's figure out how to save the galaxy. Bleak's skin shifted to a worried orange. 5 of us against an entire invasion fleet? The odds are about the same as surviving a year in Australia. Zeke interrupted. So, basically Tuesday. Here's what we're gonna do. The harmonics think they've won because they've never dealt with humans before. They don't understand the emotional chaos isn't our weakness. It's our operating system. He pulled out his tablet, which was miraculously still working thanks to electromagnetic shielding he's installed after the great Wi-Fi outage of sophomore year. First rule of Earth warfare. If you can't beat them with superior firepower, beat them with superior weirdness. Xander, I need you to access the university's historical database. Pull up everything on psychological warfare, guerrilla tactics, and most importantly, performance art. Performance art? Zeke's grin was sharp enough to cut glass. Trust me, we're gonna teach these harmony-obsessed cruise directors what happens when you try to conduct a symphony on Earth's stage. The first phase of Operation Chaos Theory was simple: reconnaissance. Jane and her fellow maintenance bots could move through the station unnoticed, recording harmonic positions and behavior patterns. What they found was disturbing. The integrated weren't just mind-controlled, they were being slowly converted. Harmonics fed on emotional resonance, literally sustaining themselves by forcing beings into their collective frequency. It was like a cosmic pyramid scheme, but with more singing and existential dread. "They're parasites," Bleak whispered, his skin cycling through disgusted purples. "Emotional vampires." "No," Zeke corrected, studying the footage. "They're worse. They're a boy band that's achieved sentience." Phase 2 was harassment. Zeke had learned from the best, his 3 younger siblings who had turned psychological warfare into an art form. The Harmonics wanted peaceful integration, he'd give them chaos. It started small. Jane rewired speakers to play Earth music at random intervals, death metal in the meditation chambers, Baby Shark in the command center, Rick Astley everywhere else. The Harmonics' perfect harmony kept getting interrupted by humanity's audio chaos. "Why?" One harmonic commander resonated to his subordinates. "Do they have a song about precipitation in Spain remaining mainly in the plain? What tactical purpose does this serve?" Meanwhile, Zeke has set up what he called emotional bombs throughout the station. Using his robotic skills and some creative programming, he'd rigged environmental controls to create random, intense stimuli. The temperature in hallways would suddenly drop to Arctic levels, then spike to desert heat. Lights would strobe in patterns designed to induce specific physiological responses. He even managed to synthesize the smell of his high school's cafeteria's Thursday surprise, which cleared entire sections of the station. "You're just annoying them," Xander observed as they watched Harmonics flee from a corridor that now smelled like burnt Brussels sprouts in defeat. "Exactly," Zeke said. "Humans have turned being annoying into an evolutionary advantage. You know why we're so good at survival? Because we're too stubborn and irritating to die. We're the universe's equivalent of that song that got stuck in your head." But the real masterstroke came when Zeke discovered the Harmonics' fatal flaw. They weren't just emotionally synchronized, they were emotionally dependent. They literally couldn't comprehend the human ability to feel multiple contradictory emotions simultaneously. "Think about it," he explained to his team. "Humans cry at weddings. We laugh at funerals. We can be terrified and excited at the same time. We built entire industries around that feeling. We're walking paradoxes, and that breaks their whole system." The plan that formed was insane, but as Zeke's grandmother used to say, "If it's stupid and it works, it's not stupid, it's Florida." "You want to convince them you're a god?" Xander said flatly, her crystalline form pulsing with what Zeke had learned was equivalent of a migraine. "Not just any god," Zeke corrected, soldering the last connection on his masterpiece. "A human god. Do you have any idea how unhinged our deities are? Zeus turned into a swan to seduce someone. Loki gave birth to an 8-legged horse. The Aztec gods were basically running a cosmic prank show with blood sacrifices. Our gods are chaos incarnate." He stood back to admire his work. Using spare parts from Jane's maintenance supplies, his emergency kit, and what might have been someone's lunch, he didn't ask, he'd built what he called the mythology machine. It was part holographic projector, and part emotional amplifier, and part Tesla coil. It looked like what would happen if Radio Shack had a baby with a mythology textbook during a lightning storm. "The Harmonics integrate people by forcing emotional unity," Zeke explained, "but humans' mythology is built on contradiction. Gods of war who fall in love, trickster deities who save the world, death gods who create life. We're gonna hit them with so much paradox, their harmony will shatter like an opera singer versus a wine glass. Bleak's skin rippled through skeptical yellows. And they'll believe you're a god because I've been seeding the idea for weeks. Every mythology class, every late-night study session where I told stories about Earth's gods, the integrated still have those memories. And what's the one thing every human myth has in common? The gods walk among us. They hide in plain sight. They're teachers, wanderers, that weird kid in your class who knows too much about survival tactics. Understanding dawned in Xander's faceted eyes. You've been playing the long game. Humans always do. We're the species that buried time capsules and built monuments for civilizations we'd never see. We play chess while everyone else plays checkers. And now, he hefted the mythology machine onto his shoulders. Now we flip the board. The central plaza of Apex U had been transformed into Harmonic Integration Center. Hundreds of students and faculty stood in perfect formation, humming in unison as the Harmonic commanders prepared for the final phase of their conquest. Other worlds would see this broadcast, witness the peaceful conversion of the galaxy's finest minds, and willing to submit to integration. They were not prepared for Zeke Marsters. He entered from above, because every good deity needs a dramatic entrance. The mythology machine's anti-gravity modules, repurposed from the cafeteria's food delivery drones, let him descend like something between an angel and a very confused Mary Poppins. Lightning crackled around him, real lightning, because the Tesla coil wasn't just for show. The emotional amplifier began its work, broadcasting not harmony, but beautiful, terrible chaos. Every human emotion at once, the joy of a perfect sunrise, the terror of a midnight storm, the bittersweet ache of nostalgia, the fierce burn of righteous anger. "I," Zeke announced, his voice carrying impossibly far thanks to Jane's creative rewiring of the PA system, "am extremely disappointed in all of you." The harmonics recoiled. Disappointment wasn't in their emotional vocabulary. How could you be disappointed when everything was perfect unity? 10,000 years, Zeke continued, electricity dancing between his fingers in patterns that definitely violated several laws of physics. 10,000 years I've watched, waited, sent my children to the stars to learn, to grow, to become more than what they were. And this is what greets them? Forced harmony? Emotional slavery? He was mixing mythologies now, pulling from every story he'd ever told. The righteous fury of Zeus, the clever wordplay of Anansi, the protective rage of Kali, the disappointed dad energy of the Abrahamic God on a particularly bad Old Testament day. The integrated began to stir. Somewhere in their synchronized minds, memories flickered. Stories told by a strange human boy about gods who were contradictions incarnate. Gods who walked among mortals. Gods who pretended to be teenage exchange students because, why not? "You know," Zeke said conversationally, while lightning continued to arc around him and the emotional chaos grew stronger. "Humans have a saying. God works in mysterious ways. You know why we say that? Because we made our gods in our image, and we don't make sense even to ourselves." A harmonic commander stepped forward, its form wavering between frequencies. You cannot be. Gods are a myth, superstition, emotional constructs of primitive... "Buddy," Zeke interrupted, "I'm a 19-year-old from Chicago who builds robots for fun, taught aliens about memes, and is currently floating in defiance of physics while wearing my lucky Spider-Man socks. Which part of this seems normal to you?" The emotional amplifier reached its crescendo. But instead of forcing a single emotion like the harmonics did, it embraced the chaos. Every being in the plaza felt everything at once: love and loss, joy and sorrow, hope and fear, all dancing together in the beautiful mess that was human existence. "Here's the thing about harmony," Zeke said, touching down in the center of the plaza. "It's beautiful, but it's not life. Life is jazz, not a metronome. It's a difference between a heartbeat and a drum machine. You want to know why humans survive everything? Because we're not trying to achieve perfection. We're trying to achieve interesting." The integrated began to break free, not in a wave, but in stutters and starts. Kella laughed and cried simultaneously. Nim's mind began working at its normal, beautifully chaotic pace. Even the harmonic commander was beginning to fracture, its perfect form splitting into discordant frequencies. "This is impossible," it resonated. "No being can contain such contradiction, such chaos, such—" "Humanity?" Zeke suggested. "Yeah, we get that a lot, usually right before we do something impossible. Speaking of which..." He cranked the mythology machine to its final setting. Every holographic projector in the station came alive with human myths, gods and monsters, heroes and villains, stories of creation and destruction playing out in three-dimensional glory. But more than that, it showed humans, laughing at danger, crying at beauty, fighting against impossible odds, not because they could win, but because it was right. "You want to integrate us?" Zeke asked the fragmenting harmonics. "Fine, but understand what you're integrating. We're the species that looked at the void and decided to fill it with stories. We're the children of a Deathworld who grew up to write poetry. We're chaos given form. And buddy, we're contagious." The harmonic collective shattered. Not violently, that would have been too simple. Instead, they experienced something far more devastating: individuality. For the first time in their species' history, each harmonic felt something different from the others. Some felt wonder. Some felt fear. Some felt an inexplicable urge to try pizza. Their commander looked at Zeke with something that might have been awe or terror or possibly both. "What are you?" Zeke powered down the mythology machine, the lightning fading as he shrunk back to just another teenage boy with questionable fashion sense and a gift for survival. "I'm human," he simply replied. "We're all human here, in our own ways. That's what Earth teaches. Not just how to survive, but how to survive as yourself, chaos and all." Around the plaza, the freed students were experiencing their own kind of chaos. Dean Tadria's emotional patches were cycling through colors like a particularly ambitious rainbow. Keela was alternating between taking scientific notes and having what appeared to be an existential crisis. Nim stood perfectly still, a small smile on his face as his thoughts raced in three different directions at once. "We had perfection," the harmonic commander said, its voice small and lost. "We had unity, purpose. Now we have choice." Zeke finished. "Yeah, it's messier, but it's also real. You can't have harmony without discord to compare it to. You can't have joy without sorrow. You can't have peace without understanding chaos." "But how do you function?" another harmonic asked. "How do you make decisions when every individual feels differently?" "Badly, mostly," Zeke admitted. "We argue, we fight, we make mistakes, but we also create, adapt, surprise ourselves. We make music that's never been heard and art that's never been seen. We fail spectacularly and succeed impossibly. It's not efficient, but it's alive." The harmonic commander studied him for a long moment. "You're not really a god, are you?" "Nope. Just a kid from a planet that specializes in creating survivors. But here's the secret. Every human has a bit of God in them, the divine spark of absolute stubborn refusal to do what the universe expects. We all have it, even you now. I don't know what to do with this, the commander admitted. Nobody does. That's the point. You make it up as you go, try not to hurt anyone, and hope for the best. Welcome to consciousness. It's terrifying, beautiful, and absolutely worth it. 3 months later, Apex U had a new course listing, Applied Chaos Theory and Emotional Paradox. It was taught jointly by Zeke and the former Harmonic commander, who'd chosen the name Discord because, as she put it, if you can't beat the chaos, name yourself after it. Today, Zeke announced to a packed auditorium, we're discussing the survival value of humor. Can anyone tell me why humans laugh when faced with certain death? A new student, fresh from a perfectly ordered crystal world, raised a tentative hand. Because they're malfunctioning? Common misconception! Zeke grinned. Discord, you want to take this one? The former Harmonic's form rippled with what she'd learned to call amusement. Laughter is the face of death is not malfunction. It is the ultimate rebellion. It says to the universe, you may destroy my body, but you cannot touch my spirit. It is both surrender and defiance. It is perfectly imperfect. Extra credit, Zeke added, to anyone who can explain why humans domesticated cats when they clearly had no survival value and actively plot our destruction. From the back row, Kiwa called out, because they're fluffy and make funny noises. See, you're getting it. Humans don't do things because they make sense. We do things because they make life interesting and sometimes fluffy. After class, Zeke found himself on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Earth hung in the distance, a blue marble that had absolutely no business producing spacefaring life, but had done it anyway out of spite. Homesick? Discord asked, joining him. Always, Zeke said. But that's the part of being human. We're always homesick for somewhere, even when we're home. It keeps us moving, exploring, trying to find that perfect place that probably doesn't exist. Your species is insane. Thanks, we try. They stood in comfortable silence, former enemies now united by the strangest force in the universe, mutual understanding of the absurd. You know, Discord said eventually, the Galactic Council is updating Earth's classification. Oh? Still a Class 15 Deathworld, but they're adding a new subcategory. Nursery of Chaos. Approach with caution and an open mind. Pack extra socks. Zeke laughed, the sound echoing through the observation deck like a challenge to the ordered universe. Sounds about right. You know what this calls for? Please don't say another mythology lesson. Movie night! I'm introducing you to the pinnacle of human culture. Movies where the dog dies, but somehow it's still a happy ending. You're gonna cry so hard. I'm beginning to understand why your species survives everything. Discord mused. You're too confusing to die. Damn straight. Now, come on, I'll make popcorn. Fair warning, humans eat explosions covered in butter. Because, of course we do. As they walked away, Earth continued its ancient dance through the cosmos. A death world, a nursery, a forge of beautiful chaos.